We are live. It is the Manchester United versus Sheffield post-match chat. Ross View is in the house. I'm waiting for George to join me. We're going to be talking about the match. What did you actually think about the game? Was it just a bit of a breeze? Did you expect Man United to score more goals? We'll find out. Martial's in my veins. Ross View saying that George has added his hair. Let me just grab my headphones so that I can speak to him and we can get his views as well. George,
hi, Rod.
You were live. We went live. It's all a rush.
That's fine.
It's all a rush. Ross is in the house. He said Martial's in his veins. It was sick. It was sick, he says. United Alex 7 says, what a game. George, I mean, let's not beat about the bush. It was a bit of a breeze for Manchester United today, wasn't it?
Very much so, yeah. As we sort of spoke about a few days ago, he went with the front six that he needed to go with. And really there was such a difference. All the style of football was so much improved compared to even the Spurs match. When you've got six quality players on the ball who know how to retain possession, as I said, the style of football, the way that we were retaining the ball, the dominance of possession, again, all the stats that were coming out, obviously, when we had, especially in the second half, in that early part of the second half, when we just absolutely dominated the ball, as I said, all the passing triangles, controlling the possession, and Nemanja Matic was absolutely superb in that anchor role as well. Just phenomenal, really.
Do you know what? You stole my thunder there, George, because I wanted to use Matic at the end. This is a guy who had been literally abused by the bulk of the United fan base, saying he was too old, he was too slow, he held up play, he didn't move the ball. He hasn't changed his style of play. He's still playing the same way, but yet put him alongside better players, people actually see the quality that he has. He lasted longer than the main star that people were talking about in terms of Paul Pogba. He lasted longer. An older man stayed out on the pitch longer than the younger man. So, you know, credit to Matic. Really is something. You know what? I've got to get this thing in. I'm going to bring up a little graphic. Hopefully, where is it? There it is. And the last time we spoke, I had Fred watch.
Yeah.
Fred watch. What happened? What happened to Fred?
That was the best. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily that was the best.
You killed Fred,
but ultimately, you saw, as I said, though, with those six compared to even if you think about, for example, Dan James or McTominay or Fred to varying degrees, all of the quality and possession was because we had such quality footballers on the ball. It was like night and day, really, in terms of controlling the game. And you see, really, because obviously Fred's been almost a mainstay, really, and a linchpin of United over this season. You see with the quality that we then had in midfield with, in my opinion, our best midfield now to take forward for the rest of the season in Matic, Pogba and Fernandes. You see really, like I said, you see how little we miss Fred and indeed how much better we play, because with his touch on the ball, that sort of beautiful flowing football that we saw just isn't possible with him playing, because there's always a chance he'll take heavy touch, and also his decision making on the ball is not as good as Nemanja Matic is probably unparalleled in terms of how good his distribution is, and also the decision making he makes in terms of when he's passing. It appears like he's got more time on the ball than anyone else, and as I said, his distribution, and every time that you sort of look at Matic, he's always picking the right pass. He's always making himself available for a player out of possession as well. And he's always looking to progress the game. And as I said, really it was a sort of flawless performance from Matic, which was only eclipsed by one player whom I'm sure we'll get onto.
Yeah, listen, I like Matic. I do, and I did always like him. And people forget that he scored probably one of the most valuable goals for Manchester United when it was a late goal against Crystal Palace, when they were desperate to get the win and kind of move up the table to secure a decent position. So he's never once let Manchester United down. He's never once thrown his toys out of the pram in terms of not being picked. He wants to play. He is a first choice Manchester United team member for me.
Yes.
It's about who you move out of the way for him. I like Fred as well, but in terms of the balance that we saw today, it'd be hard pressed not to include him. But the games are going to come thick and fast, and if the temperature continues to be as good as it was today, I mean, great if you're lounging around on the beach and you've got like a nice lemon sherbet. But if you're being asked to run around, yeah, honestly, it's not the game, it's not the weather to, you need a shandy and something and just chill. But I could see that for me, the first 20 minutes, you could see that Sheffield United really didn't put too much into it. In terms of a competition, they tried, and their forward line players didn't chase too many things in terms of loose balls. Didn't hassle any of the United defenders. In that heat, they probably thought, I'm not chasing that. If it's not to feet, then I'm not going to bother. And you could see that within the first 45 minutes. It's a comment says, Matthew Crichton says, Bruno looked class again. And also, I'm not sure where he's almost says, and also, it's almost like he was so excited that he forgot who else. But let's talk about Bruno.
I think
I don't want to talk about Pogba. I know you want to.
I was going to. I mean, really, you could. It's really hard to pick. As I said, I think Matic had such a sublime game in many ways, but equally, obviously, both Pogba and Bruno had good games as well. Bruno, again, always sort of looking for the passes, always trying to be creative and decisive in the final third.
Yeah,
he really has had such a transformative effect upon Manchester United ever since he's come in.
Yeah.
You can see it in all the sort of play, the way that he's sort of interlinking everything at that number 10 spot, in between all of the forwards and the midfield. And I think really that the players have become galvanised by his presence, and it's provided some much needed impetus in our sort of charge for the top 4 positions. He wasn't necessarily as needed as he has been in other games, really, because, as you sort of mentioned, Sheffield weren't necessarily at the races today. In terms of like potentially whether that was the weather. Again, the goals came at quite crucial points as well, because they became deflated quite early on. And again, United, because of the midfield that we picked, very much suited having that early goal advantage and then just being able to hold on to the ball for long periods of time and just allow them to chase shadows, which again further demoralizes the Sheffield players. There was quite a hairy moment, I think, with Bruno, where we thought there was a suspicion that he might have been injured as well, when he sort of was off the field and sort of clutching it, and everyone, of course, held a collective breath, hoping that he wasn't injured, and luckily he doesn't appear to be any worse for wear. But again, like I said, he wasn't as much needed this match. It was good that all the other players stepped up to the plate, because that's what we want. It's a collective game. We want players to step up, and obviously there wasn't really a bad performance among any of the players today, which is good to see.
No, do you know what I would say? I'm sure someone's got a quiet word to say about Luke Shaw,
Right.
Because there were moments I was thinking, you took risks where you didn't need to, and he picked up a yellow card, which was, not necessarily of his making, because he tried to keep a ball in, which he couldn't. And I think sometimes if you're winning 2-0 and you think you can't make that ball, just let it go out for a throw.
He's always had that in him, unfortunately, Luke Shaw. He's always had that sort of, tempestuous side, and always that sort of silly, irrational side. I remember, I think it was last season, or it might have been this. I think it was last season, where he got suspended because he picked up too many yellow cards. You can obviously get it on a cumulative basis.
Yeah.
And he is well known, sort of versed in getting, conceding those, needless fouls. Because again, we were, as you've mentioned, we weren't exactly chasing the game or anything. We were in a comfortable position. He could have just let it go. It's not integral for him to have brought him down. And again, it was a needless yellow card. There was a very good moment. I would sort of give praise to Shaw, though. There was a very good moment at the end where he sort of skipped past a couple of players and then delivered that very good crossfield ball to Igalo and slipped him in. And it was just Ighalo's touch, unfortunately, a bit of rustiness that that caused him not to be able to bring it under control and score. But as I said, a very good performance all round for the boys.
Yeah, definitely. There's a comment here that it says, so I think Mark says it's the George Kyle shot. Do you know this George Kyle? Who is he? No, I'm joking. Mark's probably right on. Matthew Crichton says Fred will definitely play the next game. It's the FA Cup, possibly. And this. I've got to show this one. This is Pankaj. I've got to show Pankaj's comment. He's got to say, Ollie is the next Sir Alex. I don't know about that, Pankaj. I don't know. It's a little bit too soon. United Alex 7 says Dalot should play in the next game. Ha Banter says that the French players generally give him a hard on. Well, that's what happens when you're at home, I suppose. I'm not sure. Probably watch the game. It's warm, so you're probably wearing very little. So, it might be the breeze or whatever. Pankaj says Matic was a leader in that midfield. Make him captain. We've been down that road before, Pankaj. I don't think we need to open that little chest anymore. It's done. It's done. It's done. Max, it says 4-3-3 versus Norwich. He's already jumped into the next game. Already jumped in. We're going to hold, but I'm going to come back to that comment, Max. I'm going to come back to that comment. I have a question which I've written down. Copious notes, George. Copious notes. Pogba's playing in a role, right? He played today in a deeper role. Pogba's played in a role today that everyone on a particular channel, I remember them calling me Lodney because I said he wasn't world class, and everyone said you don't know what you're talking about. This will be 4 years in August.
Yeah.
They said he needed to be freed. He didn't need responsibility. We're not gonna spend too long on him, but he played in a deeper role that everyone said he needed freedom from. The key to this team right now is Bruno Fernandes. It is not Paul Pogba. So I think Pogba either realizes that and he's not going to throw his toys out of the pram, or he's following the instructions of the manager because he knows it's the way for him to get out of the club. But, what I saw from him today was a very mature performance in front of the back four alongside Matic. And he did what he needed to do. I mean, it was only Sheffield. Let's just get that clear. It's only Sheffield United. But he played in a position that I thought he could always play, but we never saw the best of it, of that in terms of him in that position from the manager that was there before, which is a shame. Which really is a shame because, and a lot of people will say, but he didn't have Maguire. Well, Maguire's a defender, so that's not going to change much, is it really? In terms of the players the outfield players that were there today, Greenwood is coming up through the academy. Bruno's new. Everyone else has been milling around a while, so it's not necessarily a new team. I look at that and I just think, I wish you had been able to have delivered those kind of bog standard but steady performances for Manchester United before, consistently, and without too many of the fan base going, he needs to be freed because of, we know he can do fancy flicks. He did a great pass today, chipped it over, it went in front of, I think it was Rashford fluffed the shot. Yes. It was a brilliant chip. It was like so cute. It's amazing. That's great. But it's the basic stuff sometimes that you need to see, and you just think, this is what we need. we need meat and potatoes sometimes, yes. Not necessarily always flair. So it was good to see. How happy were you for Martial to get his goals?
Very, very, very happy. I think it's a blessed relief, really, for a lot of United fans. We've had that sort of albatross around our necks now for 7 years. Obviously, it's over 7 years now since Robin van Persie scored what was the title-winning hat-trick against Aston Villa in 2013. So again, as I said, that sort of burdens now off our players, and it's an unwanted record, particularly given the fact that I think almost all the Premier League teams have at least had one hat-trick goal scorer in that intervening period, which just shows again that we have missed really a ruthless goal scorer, and someone who's very clinical. That's what that sort of epitomizes to me. I thought today, not just with the goals, but also with the link-up play, the movement, the tackling as well, the tracking back. I thought Martial was superb, and really, even without the goals, was man of the match, because everything he touched was gold today. He was absolutely brilliant. Well, could have had an assist, of course, for Rashford in the first half, even after his first goal, when he sort of slipped him in nicely for an open goal. But Rashford couldn't necessarily sort out his feet. But then when we sort of move on to the goals, the first one, instinctive, clinical finish from quite a lashed cross from Marcus Rashford.
It was almost Antonio Valencia-esque.
Yes,
baseball bat,
good driven cross, which of course, Roberto Carlos was also a good exponent of as well.
He was.
But again, as I said, that was just a lethal finish. Good for Aaron Wan-Bissaka as well to get the assist for the second goal. And again, Martial was right place, right time, with an assured and finish as well, and in a composed manner. And then the third goal was just incredible link up. And then just the most casual of, sublime finishes from Martial to complete the hat trick. And again, for all the United fans, really, not just for Martial FC, but for all United fans, it's really superb to see our centre forward in and amongst the goals and getting a hat trick, and that can do wonders for his confidence, and hopefully can help propel us to top 4 in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I thought it was a really well taken hat trick. I mean, the movement between himself and Rashford was brilliant. Rashford's composure with the pass, he adjusted his feet extremely well. Cute finish, as you said. Nice, really nice to see a striker score a hat trick, and amazing that it's his first senior hat trick. You can see how happy he was. But there was the commentator mentioned something about it. The fans not being there, and it would have taken something away from it. Not really. I suppose when you're scoring goals for Manchester United, regardless of who's watching, if this was a Europa League game, which they did play before the lockdown, where there were no fans, if he'd have scored a hat trick, then it wouldn't have taken the shine off of it in terms of the importance of the 3 goals for him and the team. So really, really pleased to see him score 3. Really pleased that he was in positions to actually get on the end of crosses, even though the crosses weren't necessarily cultured. They were literally just blasted across. But you've got to react. You've got to get there first. You've got to be there and anticipate. And he showed what it was that, in terms of being a number 9. Maybe that's been developed in terms of him seeing what Agallo does in training. More competition. It cannot just simply be because he asked to play number 9 and this is what he's showing. Every striker needs competition. I think we've realised now, and I think Ollie's realised, and I think Rashford has realised that his best position is coming in from the left. And he's comfortable coming in from the left, and Martial being on the main man. Really happy to see. I think the first 15 minutes we saw a lot of Greenwood. It was dropping deep. He's coming in to do link-up play. Good to see that he was really important that he got minutes on the pitch. Didn't seem to will in terms of the temperature. Continued to be strong. The midfield was good. Like I say, Fernandes looks good. He looks like he, apart from the engine, he looks like he is the leader. Doesn't have the armband, but he is the leader. And maybe that's what Pogba needed. He needed someone else other than himself to be the focal point. So he can just be Paul Pogba and, do what he does. And Matic, as we've talked about. Maguire looked untroubled. Lindelof, I was surprised to see him start. I thought it was Bailly who's going to get in. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, what can you do? You've only got to say his name and just be like, no one's getting past him. Just leave it at that. And Luke Shaw, surprised he started. Really did think Brandon Williams was going to get a start or even come on. Apart from that one slight blip where he ended up giving, he pushed himself into the book really, because he could have let the ball go out, or if not, just got back into position, but he clipped the player. I suppose that's the only thing I would say about the performance that was a bit of a slight. Other than that, they looked composed. It looked almost like a training game. The one thing that I want to ask, and I've got a banner about it, and there it is, has come up. Should United have scored more goals? I mean, seriously, when I look at the stats, I don't believe Sheffield United had a shot on target. David De Gea could have actually gone to Broadstairs and taken out a deck chair. It was that easy. Could or should United have scored more goals?
If you look at sort of the chances we created and possession that we had and the way that we dominated the match, there's not really an argument to say that we really should have scored more goals. Rashford didn't seem to have left his shooting boots at home, compared to Martial. And of course, you could see even when they sort of panned to the bench, you could see that Rashford was quite frustrated with himself because he had been quite profligate. But ultimately, I think that is something that Ollie needs to really work on with the players, is to try and be more ruthless in front of goal. I think, irregardless of whether we sort of blame maybe the temperature in terms of sapping the energy and they don't want to expend too much, or potentially they're saving themselves with this busy schedule that's now coming up, you still want to see them be ruthless in front of goal. And I don't necessarily think that we were enough in the same way as you might see, for example, a Manchester City, who never seem to sort of give an inch and always seem to be attacking no matter what the score is, to try and score goals. We want to try and sort of implement more of a ruthless element to Manchester United, because often that sort of air of complacency has often set in. I think when we do tend to be winning, let's say 2-3-0 at half time against, when we have been leading by those sort of scores under Ollie, or even as far back as Jose Mourinho, often we've just sort of sat back on our laurels and just allowed the game to sort of drift on until full time. So a lot of people at half time will give quite outlandish, large, score predictions based on what's happened obviously at half time, but the game was already won by then. And like I said, United, over the recent years haven't necessarily had the appetite to extend or try and build upon the leads that they've garnered. And as I said, that's something that I would be looking for if I was our lead, to try and improve on, because you never know when goal difference potentially, with the situation with Chelsea or whoever it might be that we're fighting for top four, you never know if goal difference might be the deciding factor.
Yeah, would the FA anything? They might actually do rock, paper, scissors. Honestly, it's a good thing he talks about goal difference. Jay Hart, more goals would have been useful in case it came to goal difference for Champions League spot. I have to be honest with you. I'm not even thinking necessarily about the goals in terms of Champions League. I just thought in terms of the opposition. They didn't offer much. Man United, even though it was a game that probably trying in terms of temperature, they did well in terms of the possession, bossed it in terms of possession overall. Obviously, shots on target, much greater. Sheffield United, nothing. Corners were probably the most significant part of Sheffield United's armoury. Dealt with easily. I just thought in terms of goals, opportunities going forward, this probably would have been the best opportunity for them to have racked up more in terms of just the goal tally. Whether it would influence Champions League spots, who would know? Because they say the FA at the moment, they could do rock, paper, scissors. They could do penny against the wall. Who knows? It's going to be a bizarre one. What I want to get into, I'm going to say thanks to everyone who's watching and throwing in the comments. There's one I'm trying to find and got to go back, and it was Max. I'm trying to find it. He gave such a good comment as well. It was about the next team. Right, there it is. So I think it's for versus Norwich. I'm going to bring this up on the screen. Max says go 4-4-3 versus Norwich. Romero in goal. Dallo, Bailly, Mengi, Williams, McTominay, Fred. See, Fred gets in. Pogba, James, Igalo, and Rashford. What do you think about that in terms of a potential lineup for the next game?
I wouldn't be opposed to it in any way, really. You want to see some squad rotation. the games are now going to come thick and fast. You particularly want to save some of our most important players for these crunch Premier League games. In many ways, almost the FA Cup's almost a sideshow or side event now, in my view anyway, in terms of what our season's objectives are.
Yeah.
Top four or Champions League, whether that is by top four or by the Europa League, if that is the sort of back door that we sometimes that we try and go into. Like I said, I wouldn't be opposed to the squad rotation, but I feel like Ollie's already proved in previous months and during his tenure with Manchester United that he is reluctant to make wholesale changes. And often you do see players being used constantly and consistently. I remember, of course, when, and it might be because he knew that Phil Jones was a bit of a liability, but I remember when at the back end of sort of last year and the start of this year, when we were playing Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof week in, week out, which was because we had incurred quite a few injuries, I think, to Bailly to Ansabe. But again, he did have the option to use Jones in some of those matches. And he sort of neglected to do so. So, like I said, that's a sort of team that I might have choose as well. But I think Ollie won't make that many changes. But he really does need to. I think Nemanja Matic, Fernandes, Pogba to a certain extent. So I think though, because like I said, I'm so adamant that we must have that front six that we saw today in our Premier League matches from now on. He needs to rest as many of those players as he can for the Norwich match. And we do have, as sort of Max has shown there with that other team, which didn't have too many of our sort of like
he did have Rashford.
Players.
He did have Rashford in there, which I kind of thought to myself, he's played 2 games on the bounce. He as much as he's a young man, he doesn't need to be in that game.
There might be an element though with Rashford where it might be good for his confidence as well, because we've seen in these first 2 matches, obviously today he missed quite a few chances, and also against Spurs he had the chance. Remember when Pogba delivered that superb ball, and it was just sort of control and lack of match sharpness that let him down. So it might not be necessarily a bad idea to sort of blood Marcus Rashford again in the Norwich match, just to build up his confidence and try and get maybe a goal or 2 to just settle him back in after the long break that we've had. And like I said, Norwich is almost like, I know everyone will be incredibly upset if we did get eliminated by Norwich in the Cup at the weekend, but at the same time, the sort of bigger picture is Champions League football.
Do you know what? I could see Norwich. They probably thought, let's forget about the league, because we're getting battered in the league. Let's just stick it all on. Yeah, I can imagine it. It'd be one of them like, yeah, boys, we're just going to go for it for the FA. But the rest were down. We're Championship players at best. We'll enjoy this season and go for a cup run while we can. Jay Hart says the 5 subs Ollie made this game will be in the starting lineup versus Norwich. Possibly. We're going to go for 5 more minutes. What I need to do, this is what I haven't done so far. I played around with it so much. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Oh my! I love doing this. It's great. Did you see what I did earlier? I changed the brand color.
I did. I sort of glimpsed away momentarily, and then
just really quick like that. And it's like messing around because you've got buttons. You might as well press them. Jessica says that's a great idea, Jay Hart. This obviously, I actually want for those who are watching, please, can you put in the comments what was the one thing or the oddest thing that you saw today that stood out in the game? The oddest thing. Not the best thing or the worst thing, but the oddest thing. For me, it was very simple. It was during the water break, watching the support staff, the medical team, with those, what I could only describe as dinner lady bibs.
Right.
The plastic bibs, the actual... And I was just like, what, is that going to stop you from getting coronavirus? Or what is that? It's just like, it's a little sheet of plastic. What are you doing? What is it?
Yeah.
Seriously, like the coronavirus is going to go, oh shit, he has a bib. Let's not go there. Like, come on, guys. Come on. I'm joking. I like to take the piss about certain things. There you go. Oh, I said piss. Sorry. It's not after 9. I want to ask you about one person who came on, and I just thought to myself, this is one player who will be regarded as an extremely nice guy by those Old Trafford faithful and everyone else in football. But in terms of Juan Mata, and this is for everyone as well. Man United managers, they've really fucked this guy over, haven't they? Honestly, I'm sorry. You know, when you look at his talent and what he can do with the ball, I mean, his pace has always been the issue, but never his ability. And he's, again, never, ever, ever complained about anything. I just think he's a true gent, you know, and it's a credit to him. And he's the kind of player I could see who will run out his contract at United, and he'll end up doing a coaching badge there, and he'll stay in the background. Or do, you know, I think he's so embedded in Manchester United, the Manchester United way, that I don't see him moving on. I see him just being there. I just see him being there, which for me is a great thing, because if you are a young player coming through, and you see someone like Juan Mata saying, yeah, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to strike the ball, this is how you need to, you're going to listen. You're going to listen, because you know that he's such a nice guy and he's a very humble person. So, you know, for me, it was nice seeing him come on and get some game time, but just made me consider and think about all of the managers that have had him. And I just thought they really didn't play him in the right position, honestly.
He's been obviously had a phenomenal almost start, or you know, career at Chelsea. I think he won a couple of Player of the Years at Chelsea as well when he was playing there, and of course he was brought in by Moyes in that January, wasn't he?
Yeah,
of that window.
I don't even know if that was really a Moyes buy, though. It doesn't look like the kind of, considering what's happening with West Ham, I don't know if it's a Moyes buy.
We've never really seen the best of Juan Mata, and in many ways, of course, he's now, because of his age, and because obviously the once you sort of you know, get older, you lose that yard of pace, and Mata didn't really have that much to spare, unfortunately. So like I said, we've not necessarily seen the best of Juan Mata. We've never really played a system or a formation that's really suited him. We've never necessarily played him in the number 10 position, which is, you know, his position. We've always tended to use him almost as a false right winger, you know, as far back as I can remember. And, you know, he's sort of been exposed in many ways, but he's, as you sort of mentioned, he's a very humble footballer, very nice guy. But again, you know, his career at Manchester United has really been blighted by the managers that have used him in the formation and tactics as well. We've seen now with Ollie, hopefully, that a number 10 in Bruno Fernandes can now flourish in a new system and a new and improved age. But ultimately, Juan Mata's, sadly for him, has been almost a mainstay for the last few years, obviously since Sir Alex, of abject failure and disappointment as well.
Yeah, you know what? I would hate for individuals to kind of lump that on him in terms of the sustained period of abject failure, even though there was a Europa League win. Let's not forget it, you know, come on. Let's not try and be too downbeat. United did win some fucking silverware during that time, so let's just hold back a little bit. But in terms of the arc, in terms of his career at Manchester United, when you look at it, you would think every single manager did not use him in the position that he should have been used in. And it is for me, it's a crying shame, because he offers so much on the pitch going forward. I think, you know, just his vision. And so for someone who doesn't have the pace, and he falls into the category of Matic, he's not one to hide.
Yeah.
Not one to hide. Always puts in a performance, not one to hide. I very rarely hear people say, yeah, he didn't try. Not with him. It's always going to be, oh, he's too slow, is this, but never about effort, you know. And some people say, well, what does that mean? It means a lot in today, because there are some footballers, and I'll say again, if you're in West Ham, you can come off the bench and look like you really don't give a shit, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting relegated, so what? Yay, you know. We're going to wrap this up, Jay. I was going to say Jay Hart, then, because looking at Jay Hart's George. I'm going to quickly read his comments. He's just busy. Jay Hart says we need better quality for the youth coaching staff anyway. Jessica says Geez, Rodney, you're taking my advice. I'm not even going to say what that's about, but okay, Jessica, you can calm down. You calm down. I can't think of it. Have we got United? Did United want more? United. Alex Seven says, did United want more? That's going back to the actual should they have scored more. I'm going to do this one more time before we go. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. George, you've been busy today, George. You've been on. People will start to talk. People will start thinking, is George got like this? No, I'm joking. It's great having you on. It's been brilliant. I'm gonna relax for the rest of the evening now. I hope everyone enjoyed the post-match comments. Manchester United versus Sheffield post-chat. United won comfortably as far as I was concerned. Could have scored more goals. And no real complaints, to be fair. None really. I think we were quite upbeat and happy. We've just been discussing things across the board. Anything you want to say before we dash out the door, George?
No, absolutely. So it's just to sort of really echo that. Excellent performance. Let's just hope that they can really show the consistency that they've been lacking under Ole since he got the permanent managerial position. And let's hope we can get the wins that we need to get top four. This is really a after the false start of Spurs. This is really hopefully the time where we see the beginning of some momentum and top four within the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, well, I echo that. Right, guys, this is it from me. I'm at Red Cyrus. You can follow me. Make sure you follow the Twitter at Real United Talk. Follow George. Might as well give him your Twitter handle, George, while you're there.
So at George Kyle, Kyle 9.
Right, everyone knows you, George. There's got one more comment just flashed in. Who is it? Let's get this person in before we. Jessica says, just a good night, she says. It is a good night. I'm going to say good night. George is going to say good night. We're going to see you. We'll be back on Sunday. I need to talk to the guys about a number of things, but we'll be back on Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've missed it, if you've just joined late, please go back and watch it from the beginning. All of the talk from Ross, all of the talk from Marcus, all of the talk from myself and George. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.